All right, welcome back in, friends. Appreciate you hanging with us. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I'm Rob Ellis. That's Bill Colarulo. He is in for Tone today. Man, oh man. And I thought, Bill, we'd be leading today with the Eagles and the discussion about what they do at their coordinator spot. But then Joel Embiid said, not so fast, my friends. I have some different plans for you. And he dropped 70 points last night. And joining us right now, the man who covers the Sixers on a daily basis for the Philadelphia Inquirer. You could follow him at Pompey on Sixers, at Twitter and X. That is Keith Pompey. Keith, what's up, my man? How you doing?
What's happening? What's up, fellas?
All good, Keith. All right, man. Look, I know you're a pro. You're a pro's pro, and you've been around a long time. But is there a point in the game last night where you're like, looking around like, dude, this is pretty crazy. Like you're a kid again for a minute while Joel Embiid was doing what he was doing.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was kind of like, in that third quarter when he exploded for like the 25 points. And it was like, I believe he scored he accounted for like 74% of their points in the quarter. To me, it was like one of those like, wow, this is special. But when he went out the game, I didn't expect them to come back. Like I just didn't. I thought that, they were up double digits. They were going to like maintain the lead and what have you. And then all of a sudden I hear the crowd like chanting, and you see Joel like walking back to sit down. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, dang, they're about to check this guy back in. He's going for like, 70. and that's what he got. So, yeah, it was that moment where I was like, okay, this is getting real now. This is getting real. So it was a great performance by him.
Absolute historic night. And what made it even cooler, Brett Brown there to see it. So how cool was that Brett Brown was there to watch Joel put up 70 last night?
It's funny. I keep going back and forth with that because like I know like Brett is happy for Joel, but at the same time, it's like, dude, this guy gave us a 70 piece. Like, and then he wants to come over and give me.
Yeah, if I'm a Spurs fan, I'm like, yo, Brett, easy.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, yo, he wants to give me a hug, and they're all like, yeah, coach, we love you, but I had to like rip your rookie's heart out tonight. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you know what? I think though for Brett, when I think of that whole situation, I think of how it ended for Brett Brown. And how it was like his inability to get out of the second round was like, you know what, Brett, we got to, you got to go. And now you look at it, 3 years later, and the Sixers are still trying to get out of the second round. And all the things that he was saying about Covington, the things that he said about Joel, the things that he also said about TJ McConnell, who's not on the team anymore, it's kind of like they're all coming true. And you look at Brett, and Brett doesn't look as bad as he did back then because Doc Rivers couldn't even get the team further than what Brett Brown has. So, it in a way that it was crazy. Joel was a guy that Brett Brown believed in on and off the court. So for him to do that, it kind of like, makes it feel good for Brett. But man, he kind of destroyed his new project, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's the crazy thing is, Wembanyama played well, but it's totally just lost in the Embiid madness, Keith. I mean, he was more than held his own and showed you what he's going to be. It was Joel just basically saying, "Not yet, young man, not yet."
Exactly. That's how I looked at it. It was kind of like Joel, and the thing about Joel's funny because Joel will make it seem as if that he doesn't get motivated for these types of games. And he's a competitive guy, daggone well that he gets competitive. He gets motivated for it. But you're right. This guy had 33 points in 28 minutes, which is amazing. But Joel looked at it like, this guy is the future. I am the present right now. This game is going to be on NBA TV. I'm going to do everything in my power to destroy him. And he did, or, scored 70 points against him and everyone else. And it was like Joel was like that veteran who knew all the tricks of the trade. He knew Wemby was going to jump for this. He was going to lean in and get the foul, which enabled him to get to the foul line 23 times. So, yeah, Joel was like, you might get it in 5 years, but right now I am the guy, and I'm going to do this to you on national TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty cool to watch. It was pretty cool to watch. So a lot of people are talking about how great of a job Nick Nurse is doing, and they couldn't get out of the second round with Doc Rivers. They move on from him this year. What major differences are you seeing between the two, from the Doc Rivers Sixers to now the Nick Nurse?
Well, there's one thing when it comes down to Joel Embiid. I do believe that he's doing some of the things that Doc Rivers did with him, and if we want to talk with him, like facing the around the 14 to 15 range, facing everything. But I think the biggest thing that he does is it's like he allows Joel to tell him what he wants to do, and he tries it out, and it makes it more comfortable with him, right? He also, if you notice, Joel is shooting less 3-pointers. He's letting them know, like, look, man, you could go down there and you can impose your will. I think with the team, if you look at the defense, I mean, these guys, first of all, he has a better roster now to implement the things that he wants to do with the trade that they made and everything like that. But you look at the deflections, you see how he's utilizing, Covington's length, DeAnthony Melton's length, all these guys, Batum and everything. But I also think that even though Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are the leading two-man game in the league, as far as scoring, he has everyone else feeling like they're a part of the team. Now, again, they don't always get to score, but he's given it these opportunities like, hey, if you cut, if you're aggressive, the ball's going to find you. And it took Tobias a while to realize that. Kelly Oubre has realized that. Even Patrick Beverly, a guy who rarely gets to shoot the ball and other stops, is getting that. So I feel like he has everyone feeling like they're a part of the team's success. Whereas in years past, we heard Doc Rivers saying to James Harden, it's not a democracy. It's either you give the ball to Joel, and if Joel doesn't have it, you shoot the ball. So I feel like this is why they're successful, is because it's easier to get buy-in when you're getting guys involved with the ball, because it's simple. If you're aggressive, the ball is going to find you. And I think a lot of players want that opportunity.
Keith, I want to just stay on Embiid and just the season that he's having, the efficiency. We were talking about it earlier. 1,156 points in 1,096 minutes. He's averaging the most points per minute in NBA history. Just take an example like last night. He still gets you 18 boards. He still gets you 5 assists. He turns it over once in 36 minutes, and he shoots, 59%, whatever it was, 24 or 41. I mean, this was not Karl Anthony Towns just jacking stuff from everywhere, where his teammates and his coach just frankly dumps all over it after the game. Like, this was in the flow of the game. He was still making, sweet backdoor baseline, passes, etc. Like, he's really, and it looks a lot more like he's enforcing his will deep too. And he's not just, standing out on the perimeter because he doesn't feel like banging with the big guys.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, like, someone talked to him and said, look, Joel, you're the biggest, baddest thing in the league. I mean, I know Wemby is taller than him, and so is Porzingis. But when you factor in the weight that he has over those guys, he is like, you got to take advantage of that. But also, you are correct. I mean, like, he's shooting from a high percentage. The one thing that really stood out to me was the rebounding. He had 9 offensive boards. He was just attacking it. And I think, like, the big thing is that he's more comfortable. The game is slowing down to him. He also has a lot more faith in his teammates than he had in years past, So when you look at Joel, this season that he's having, you're right, it is historic and it's crazy. Now, I don't like, sometimes we always say, well, what if he played more minutes? Well, we don't know. I mean, maybe he could get tired. He can do this. But when you factor in that Joel Embiid is averaging 36.1 points, and he normally sits the bench in the fourth quarter.
Right.
That's amazing right there in itself. Like, the last person who averaged more points than minutes was Wilt Chamberlain. So, and we're going back a ways. So, this is a phenomenal season. It's hard to describe because you have to see it. But the things that he's doing is kind of like, he'll have 36 points and you're like, dang, he could have had 43. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's just how dominant he's been this season.
Historic season, no doubt. And I'm trying to tell myself to enjoy the greatness that I'm watching, but I keep letting my mind drift to, well, if they don't do anything in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As this team is constructed right now, do you think they have the pieces to get out of the second round, or do you still expect Daryl Morey to do something at the trade deadline?
You know what? I do think they have the pieces to get out of the second round, but as every day goes by, you're hearing another team just made a trade for
I want to talk to you about the one today, but go ahead.
Yeah, and there's always for a player that you think, oh, well, maybe he could have helped the Sixers, right? But when you look at it, I mean, if we're looking at it with an objective eye, you say to yourself, the 76ers have only played, I want to say, a handful of games with their full roster, right? I mean, since they did it, a handful of games with their full roster. They played the Milwaukee Bucks the first game of the season, and Milwaukee escaped with a victory, right? The Sixers are a half a game behind the Bucks. I look at the Sixers right now. If the Sixers are healthy, I look at the Bucks. If the Bucks are healthy, I believe the Sixers could beat the Bucks in the series. I do, right? I do. So when you say all that, I look at the Sixers and say that with Nick Nurse's coaching, if Joel Embiid continues to play at a high level, if Maxey can continue to ascend, and Tobias can continue to be aggressive, I do think that they can beat the Bucks. I do. I think they could get out of the second round if they're the third seed or the second seed. The question is, can they beat the Boston Celtics? I don't think on paper right now, I don't think anyone out there can beat the Celtics. I just think that the Celtics with Kristaps Porzingis, with Drew Holiday, I think those additions are great for them. And I think Drew is a winner, who won a championship, who's going to be motivated in the playoffs. I don't see the Sixers beating them, but I do believe the Sixers can get out of the second round and beat the Milwaukee Bucks. I do.
All right, so here's the $1 million question for me, Keith, is what level of trade are we looking at with the February 8th as a trade deadline? Do you see it as something that will kind of wow you, or okay, it was something they needed? Like for example, there's a trade that went down today between the Heat and the Hornets, and the Hornets got Terry Rozier and Kyle Lowry, and I think one went back to Charlotte. Anyway, I think we all assume Lowry's going to be waived. What could it be? It's just something like that where you pick him up, or something a little bit heavier?
You know what? I think you could pick him up, but also if he's going to be waived, then it's one of those. I mean, here's the thing with Kyle. The thing with Kyle, my only concern with him, and I love Kyle. I love Kyle Lowry. But the only thing is, I wonder, how are you going to utilize him, right? I mean, because as good as like Kyle had a career and things like that, right now you look at what Pat Bev is bringing to you as the backup point guard. And yes, Patrick Beverley has to prove that he can make shots in the playoffs. He has to prove he can do a lot of other things. But he's bringing a lot to this team that you didn't expect. Do you expect to take minutes away from him for Kyle, right? I mean, that's the question, because, you look at Kyle, are you going to say, okay, Kyle, you're going to be our starting point guard, and then we're going to bring we're going to slide Maxey off the ball? Now, if you think that you can do that, I can understand that. But at the same time, people are going to lose minutes, right? DeAnthony Melton's going to have to come off the bench. So, my thing is, how do you think it can help you? Now, Kyle Lowry, if you get him, hey, what do? You may have to waive a player, or you can trade somebody to Charlotte that they think that they may like for instance, a KJ Martin or someone. They could try him out. But my question is, if you bring a player in, how is that going to impact the rotation that you already have when you have a guy like, Patrick Beverley, who was playing at a high level for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just my only concerns.
Now, that would be kind of a minor move, bringing in somebody like that. But there's a name that's been floated all season long, which is Zach LaVine from the Chicago Bulls. Some reports now he may stay put. Would you make a big move like that if you were Daryl Morey and disrupt this roster?
Nah, not at all. Not at all. Because, I look at Zach. I don't think he's a great fit for the Sixers, and there's nothing against him. I just think that, first of all, when he was injured, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Bulls were playing better. They went on a run, right? So that messed it up a little bit. The second part is I just feel like, you are who you are. Zach is used to being a scorer, a first or second option. He wants the ball, this and that. And if he comes here and he's not that, is he really going to be happy? Like, honestly, you're so used to being a man, then all of a sudden you're a third or fourth option. He's not a two-way player. So if he's not scoring the ball, is he really going to help you on the defensive end, right? He's athletic, but is he really going to help you on the defensive end? And then secondly, if he is scoring the ball, how is that going to disrupt the chemistry with Maxey? How is that going to, is that going to like impede Maxey's growth? Maxey is playing at an all-star level this season. So you're going to bring in another all-star and say, okay, we're going to give you the keys. And then Tyrese, you got to go back to being the role you had with James and them. So when I look at a guy like that, I don't know per se if he's going to help them as much as he would have before Maxey became this player that he was, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I'm trying. And then not only that, it's like I'm pretty sure that Chicago is going to want something for him. Now, some people might say they may just want to get rid of contracts, but some of these guys they're going to get rid of are guys who are really helping the Sixers in the rotation right now. So I don't know. And then the last thing, Zach LaVine has a lot of money coming. So that means you're going to eat up a lot of that cap space that you feel like you're going to use to go after free agents. So me personally, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it at all.
It just feels like to me, Keith, Morey really, and I get the whole going for it now and Embiid's playing as well as you could ever imagine. But I think he wants that flexibility. I don't think he wants to tie himself in. Like, I don't think he have any problem bringing in a guy who was in the last year of his deal or something like that. But I think in the off season, he wants to have the picks. He wants to have the money to be able to go and really, sculpt this thing the way he wants to put it together.
Exactly. And not only that, let's think about this. When's the last time that they made a trade by February for an all-star caliber player that a team won a championship with? Like, normally it takes a while for those players to gel. It's typically easier for you to acquire like a rotation player, you know what I mean, where they just do make energy plays and stuff like that and do it. And if we're going to be honest, yeah, Daryl is going to say like, yeah, the time is now. But let's be honest with it. Daryl already got his extension. Like, beforehand, the thought was like, if they didn't make it out of the second round, Daryl Morey was going to be gone.
That's a good point.
I mean, he already has his extension.
That's a good point.
Joel is happy right now. So it's like one of those things where you say to yourself, like to everyone, look, we can get out of the second round, but can we beat Boston? If we bring these players in here, are they going to guarantee us that we can beat the Celtics? If not, we might as well see what we can do next year. Go with what we have now. And if it doesn't work out, rebuild in the offseason.
Well, I think the one thing, too, we aren't taking into account is, and I know players make plays, but, having Nick Nurse on the bench in a playoff setting, I feel good about, in whether it's Milwaukee or Boston or, whomever, Keith. I like my chances there that he's going to be able to out-scheme the other guy.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, and like, think about it. Look at Tobias Harris right now. He's playing the best basketball he's played in a while, right? Tyrese Maxey is ascended into an all-star caliber player, right? Joel Embiid is averaging more points than minutes played. Nick Batum went from a guy who wasn't even playing really with the Clippers to like, hey, he's the glue guy for the Sixers. Kelly Oubre went from a guy that no one in the offseason wanted. No one. but the Sixers. And now he looks like a guy who deserves to get paid. And what's the common denominator? Nick Nurse. And like you said, a great coach. Think of like Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Obanobi. I hope I always destroy his name. But who were those guys 5 years ago? And all of them are about to get paid. And you look at the quality of players that Nick Nurse had with the Sixers, you have to say that they're better players, right? Like initially, right? So I like the way that he develops talent. I like the way he thinks outside the box, and, unfortunately, a lot of people from the outside will say, well, yeah, he won a championship with Kawhi. It's true. But at the same time, he developed a lot of players. And I feel like this roster that he has, even included with the Kawhi and Danny Green and Kyle Lowry, you can say that with the way Joel Embiid is playing, that this roster may be better because of the depth that this team has.
And I get what you're saying about not making a move at the deadline that's going to mess up this roster, mess up the flexibility that you'll have in the offseason if you can't beat Boston. But you look at Joel, and as well as he's playing, he's going to be 30 in March. How many more years do we have of a dominant, healthy Joel Embiid? When does that window close of us having a shot to win a championship with Joel?
That's a great question, because before this season, I would say he's like on the tail end of his career. But the way he's playing at a high level is like, you don't know. But at the same time, with his injury history and everything like that, you would have to say that, I don't think he could, but I don't know if he's going to get another Supermax deal. You know what I mean? Like, I hate to say that, but it just seemed like the time down. So yeah, you are correct. You have to go out there and do it. You think you have to go out there and do it, but at the same time, at what cost? Because, Pascal Siakam, OG, these were guys that you felt like that could help them get over that edge. Now that they're going, I don't really know if there's a player out there that you feel like can help the team. Now who knows? What about what's DeJounte Murray? He's a guy who could possibly help him, but it just seems like the Hawks really want to send him to the Lakers. They want him out of the Eastern Conference, right? So it's one of those things where who is the player out there that you feel like is going to elevate you, get you past the hump, to get you, to get you the championship? I don't know if that player's out there. I just don't.
Keith, it's going to be really interesting in the next two games. Thursday at Indianapolis, or at Indiana taking on the Pacers, and then at Denver on Saturday. So you got some two interesting matchups. A new look sort of Pacers team with Siakam, and then you get the Joker again, and little revenge on his mind for the way things went here. Nice little sort of playoff test kind of games in January here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that trip, because when you look at it, initially we were hoping that we were going to find out what the Sixers were like on the road during that Christmas trip. Like, we were hoping that we would see Joel Embiid go up against Miami and then go to Orlando. And we know he destroyed Orlando the last time, but that was supposed to give us a sneak peek. Now, this is a Indiana team that they split with. It's a Denver team that you're playing in high altitude. It's going to be a hyped up game where it's going to be Joel's first time in Denver since 2019. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're going to learn a lot about the Sixers, on these road trips, because let's face it, Indiana's playing well. And when they're playing well, that's a tough place to go out and get a victory. And the same thing with Denver. It's going to be a hostile environment, just because the way that people don't like the Joker here, they put it like they despise Embiid 10 times more in Denver, right? Yeah. So that's going to be two games where we're going to see. And then another thing that I'm really looking forward to seeing is when they go to Golden State. I know Golden State is struggling, but it's going to be the second game of the back-to-back. We'll see how the Sixers, are they going to be tired? We'll see how they're going to respond, because, Golden State is going to get up for playing the Sixers. So, you know what? I'm really looking forward to this road trip. I really am.
It's going to be fun. Yeah. Keith, always good. Bill, you want to get one more in? Go ahead.
One more as you're running out the door.
Yeah.
So I looked at the list of the 9 players who put up 70 points, and there were 4 names that jumped out that are not on that list. Which one of these surprises you the most? Jordan, LeBron, AI, or Shaq never having a 70-point game?
You know what? The one who surprised me the most is MJ. I mean, you know, I know, and the reason being is because when you think of MJ, you know, like he was the scoring champion like 7 years in a row. You know, we in the playoff games, we know he had 60-something points against the Boston Celtics. You know, you look at him and you would think that he would be that guy that would be there, right? And nothing against LeBron. You know, LeBron is more of a distributor. You know, he gets his teammates involved. Shaq is really like predicated on getting the ball. He played with Kobe, and we all know pass the ball, Kobe, pass the ball, right, from Shaq. And then AI, you know, a smaller guard. He scores a lot, but he was a smaller guard that it's harder for him to get stuff. When you think of Jordan, one of the all-time greats, you know, you can make the argument it's either him or Wilt. So you would expect him to be on that list, and the fact that he's not is really surprising to me. Think about it. Devin Booker's on there, but Michael Jordan isn't.
Jordan had 69. He got close.
Yep, 69. Yep.
The other thing I'd love to see in some of those games, because I don't know, like, was Jordan taken out? Could he have stayed in there till the end and gotten 80? You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I honestly think, Keith, and I was going to follow up with this one with you. Do you think Doc would have put Joel back in the game in the fourth, like Nurse did last night, to get that to really go crazy?
You know, it's probably not. Probably not. I mean, because think about it. I think if Doc was the coach, the 30-game streak would have ended a long time ago. Remember, there was a couple games where Embiid messed up his knee, and you saw him come back and was standing there until he got 30 points. I think Doc would have been like, "Nah, dude, nah, it's over. Like, we need you for the playoffs. We need you for the next game." But the thing is, if Nick Nurse is lucky that he put Embiid back in there, because they came back. The team
it was kind of competitive.
It was competitive. It was really competitive.
Yeah. Keith, great stuff. Thanks, man. Always appreciate it. Have a safe trip, and we'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks for having me on, fellas.
All right, guys. Take care. All right, that is Keith Pompey. Bill, let's get a quick one in, and let's come back. Let's talk some NFL. We have a new head coach in place that came down yesterday. We'll talk about that. Some other guys who were interviewing in certain spots, second time, third time, big names, all those kind of things. So don't go anywhere. Bill Colarulo, Rob Ellis, we are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Flynn Tree Services. Yes, they are an experienced, licensed, and insured Pennsylvania tree services company that will trim or remove any unwanted trees off of your property. They offer cost-effective solutions to any tree problem that you may face, and they are experts trimming all types of trees, and they serve southeastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and northern Delaware. They specialize in tree removal, stump grinding, as well as tree pruning. You go to their Facebook or Instagram page for more information or a sampling of their work. Give Flynn Tree Services a call at 610-850-2848, 610-850-2848, or online at flynntreeservices.com. That's flynntreeservices.com.